Welcome to Life Stories. What happens when the person you love the most feels like a stranger? When the walls you've spent years building with your daughter come crashing down, leaving only silence and regret in their wake? Imagine waking up one day, realizing the distance between you isn't just emotional, it's a canyon, and you're standing at the edge. This is a story of love lost and found, of broken bonds that time couldn't heal. But it's also about the courage to face the truth, to confront the past, and to find each other again when everything seems impossible. Stay with us as we dive into a journey of forgiveness, self-discovery, and the deep, unspoken connection that never really disappears. Let's start. Sophia stood in her kitchen, the faint sound of the coffee machine hissing in the background. She had made the pot hours ago, yet it remained untouched, still warm, like the lingering ache in her chest. The dress she wore, soft blush, elegant, carefully chosen, hung on her frame, a symbol of everything she had hoped for, everything she had imagined. She had spent weeks picturing this moment. Madison, radiant in her wedding gown, turning to see her, her eyes filling with tears of joy. Sophia would have placed the delicate necklace, the one she'd crafted with so much love, around Madison's neck, whispering the words that had always been true. "You'll always be my baby." But none of that happened. Madison had called the night before. The words were cold, clear. "Mom, I think it's better if you don't come." No explanation, no discussion, just finality. Sophia had tried to reason, but her daughter's voice was a wall, unmoving. She had expected something else, an apology perhaps, or a plea to understand. But none came. The silence between them was deafening, louder than any argument could ever be. Now, standing in that kitchen, Sophia couldn't tell if the quiet was the hardest part, or the fact that she couldn't even cry. The weight of her daughter's rejection settled around her, thick and suffocating. The kitchen, once a place of laughter and shared moments, felt empty. The clock on the wall ticked louder than ever, and for a brief moment, Sophia wished she could go back to a time when the house had been full of joy and hope. But that time was long gone. She had raised Madison alone. She remembered those days when it was just the two of them against the world. Madison had been the light of her life, her reason for everything, and she had given her daughter everything, sacrificed her own happiness, her own dreams, so that Madison could have a safe, comfortable world. But now, that world seemed to have been erased, swept away by the cold winds of adulthood. Had it been all for nothing? The question gnawed at Sophia's insides, a burning question she couldn't ignore. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something urged her to. It was Caleb, Madison's new husband, standing at her doorstep the next morning. His face, usually so reserved, was now a mask of exhaustion and regret. He didn't greet her with the usual pleasantries. Instead, he simply asked, "Can we talk?" Sophia invited him in, her heart racing, unsure of what to expect. Caleb sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she had shared countless cups of coffee with Madison, where they'd planned their futures together. He hesitated, his hands folded in front of him. The silence stretched for a moment before he finally spoke. "I read your letter," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The one in the box." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. The necklace she had planned to give Madison on her wedding day, a precious heirloom passed down through generations, was still tucked away in the velvet box. Caleb's eyes were full of unspoken words. He had seen the truth, had read between the lines of the carefully crafted love and longing Sophia had written for Madison, for the daughter who had once been her whole world. "I didn't understand at first," Caleb continued, "but I do now. She's been pushing you away, hasn't she?" Sophia nodded, unable to speak. Her throat tightened with the weight of her own heartbreak. Caleb's eyes met hers, and for a moment there was a flicker of understanding. He didn't speak for Madison. He didn't try to fix anything. He simply acknowledged the truth, something Madison had refused to do. "I thought she needed space," Caleb admitted, his voice shaky. "But now I realize maybe it's not space she's after. Maybe it's something else." He paused, looking at Sophia with a mixture of guilt and pity. I think she's scared of you. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Scared of me? The words echoed in her mind, and something inside her cracked wide open. Had Madison, the daughter she'd raised with love and devotion, really been afraid of her? Of the love she had given so freely? It didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. As Caleb left, he turned to her one last time, his face shadowed by uncertainty. I wish I could have done more, he said quietly. Maybe I should have seen this sooner. Sophia didn't respond. She just watched him walk away, feeling more alone than she had ever felt before. The door clicked shut behind him, and she stood there, in the silence of her home, the silence of a mother whose love had been rejected. Days passed, but the quiet only grew louder. Sophia's life had become a series of small movements, each one a reminder of what had been lost. She found herself scrolling through old photos of Madison, remembering the days when her daughter had been her whole world. The pictures were filled with smiles, with memories of a time when everything had felt possible. Then, one evening, a text arrived from Madison. The message was simple, almost casual. Just confirming you won't be attending, right? Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She had known this was coming, but to see it in writing felt like a punch to the gut. There were no words of love, no mention of the gift she had prepared, no acknowledgement of the years she had spent raising her. Just logistics. Just cold, impersonal facts. And that was it. That was the moment Sophia realized the truth. She wasn't needed anymore. She wasn't wanted. What is the true cost of unconditional love when it's not returned? Do we ever truly know someone until we see them walk away? Sophia sat in silence for what felt like hours, the weight of her daughter's rejection pressing down on her chest. She had spent her life giving, loving, and sacrificing, and now she was left with nothing but the hollow space of a mother who had been erased. She had lost more than just her daughter. She had lost herself. As she closed her eyes, the tears finally came, but they weren't tears of anger or regret. They were tears of acceptance. The love she had given wasn't gone. It was simply not enough. The doorbell rang, breaking her thoughts. The next chapter of her life was about to begin. But what would it look like? What happens when we finally stop fighting for someone who doesn't want to be saved? What does it mean to truly let go and start anew? Stay tuned for the next part of this emotional journey. The days that followed Caleb's visit were strangely quiet, each one blending into the next. Sophia had no idea what to do with the space around her. Once filled with the rhythm of motherhood, now just an emptiness she couldn't escape. Her mornings were no longer filled with the small comforts of her daughter's presence. Instead, there was an eerie stillness that sat heavy in the house, like the air before a storm. She spent her days with routine, cooking meals she no longer felt like eating, sitting in the living room in the quiet hum of her thoughts. It was as though she were still waiting for Madison to come back, still waiting for some form of reconciliation that never came. One evening, she found herself staring at the unopened box in the corner of the room, the box that contained the wedding gift for Madison, the one she had never gotten the chance to give. It was wrapped in simple brown paper, but it felt like a monument to her unspoken love, to all the things that had been left unsaid. Sophia reached for it, fingers trembling as she undid the string. Inside, she found the delicate necklace, still nestled in its velvet-lined box. The charm, heart-shaped and engraved with the words, "Always your mom," was just as it had been when she first bought it. The weight of it in her hand felt strangely comforting, and for a moment, she let herself remember the person she had been before all of this. Her phone buzzed, cutting through the silence. It was a message from Caleb. "I need to talk. Can we meet?" Sophia's heart raced. She hadn't heard from him in days, and now he was asking to meet again? What more could he possibly have to say? Part of her wanted to refuse, to lock the door and keep everyone out, to hold on to the small semblance of peace she had left. But another part of her, one that had been fighting to hold on to the last threads of connection with Madison, felt the pull of the message. She had to know what was going on. She agreed to meet him at a cafe down the street. When Caleb walked in, his face was pale, his usual calm demeanor replaced by an unsettling tension. He didn't sit down immediately, his eyes darting around the room before landing on her. "I didn't know if I should come," he said quietly, his voice hesitant. "I didn't know how to say this, but I need to apologize." Sophia's stomach dropped. She had no idea where this conversation was going, but the words he was speaking felt like a prelude to something far worse. Caleb's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, there was a flicker of vulnerability in them. "I've been thinking about everything," he continued. "About Madison, about the wedding, and about how she's been shutting you out." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She had expected this moment to feel like some kind of victory, a sense of closure, but all she felt was the weight of unanswered questions. "I don't know what happened to her," Caleb admitted, his voice shaking. "She changed, Sophia. She became someone I don't recognize. And now she won't even talk to me about it. Not about you, not about anything." Sophia's heart ached for the man sitting across from her. But at the same time, her anger flared up, hot and sudden. How could he not see it? How could he not understand the depth of the hurt his wife had caused? Madison had always been her daughter, her light. Now it felt like she had been replaced, wiped from Madison's life without so much as a glance back. "But you," Sophia started, but Caleb held up a hand, cutting her off. "I think I know what happened," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Madison is scared of you. She's always been scared of how much you love her." Sophia froze, the words ringing in her ears. "Scared? Of me?" "She's always told me how she feels overwhelmed by your love, Sophia. How it's too much for her to bear. It's like she can't be her own person when you're around. Like she has to live up to this impossible standard you've set." The shock hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. She had given her daughter everything, every ounce of herself, and now she was being told that her love had driven Madison away? That everything she had done to protect her, to nurture her, had been a burden? Caleb continued, his voice trembling. "I didn't understand it at first. But after the wedding, after she pushed you out, I started seeing it. She's been terrified of you, Sophia, of how much she needs you, of how much you need her." Sophia's mind reeled. She had never seen it, never considered it. She thought she had been a mother. The mother, who gave everything, who sacrificed. But now she was forced to confront the idea that her love had been something Madison couldn't bear, that her constant presence had smothered her daughter, had pushed her away in ways Sophia couldn't even begin to understand. "So, you've decided to stay quiet, to let her shut me out completely?" Sophia's voice was sharp, her hurt and anger bubbling to the surface. "You, of all people, knew how important this was to me. You saw the woman who raised her. You saw the love I poured into her, and now you're telling me this?" Caleb's eyes were filled with regret, but he didn't argue. "I'm sorry. I should have stepped in sooner. But I think you're right. She has been shutting you out. And I don't know how to fix it. But I think maybe it's time for you two to have a real conversation. Not about me, not about the wedding, but about her, about you." The words settled in the air like smoke, thick and unyielding. Sophia felt a wave of emotion crash over her, but it wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was something deeper, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Confusion. Could it be true? Had her daughter really pushed her away because of her love? Was this the price she had paid for being a devoted mother? Sophia's gaze shifted from Caleb to the window, her mind spinning. What now? Do we ever truly know what someone else is feeling, no matter how close we are? What happens when our love becomes the very thing that drives them away? And as the silence stretched between them, a new thought began to form in the depths of her mind. The conversation wasn't over. It was just beginning. But would Madison be willing to confront the truth? And was Sophia ready to hear it? Stay tuned for the next chapter. The following days felt like they belonged to someone else. Someone who didn't recognize the woman standing in the kitchen, holding the weight of a past she had tried so hard to make sense of. Sophia hadn't seen Madison in over a month. They had talked briefly on the phone once, but it had been awkward, filled with half-hearted apologies and silence, neither of them knowing where to begin. She had been waiting. She had been hoping, in a way, that the silence would break on its own, that Madison would realize her mistake and come running back, ready to fix the bridge that had been burned between them. But that didn't happen. Instead, there was nothing. Until that Saturday afternoon, when the doorbell rang. Sophia hesitated, her heart racing in her chest. She didn't have to look through the peephole to know who it was. The calm before the storm had settled too deeply inside her to be shaken off. With one final breath, she opened the door. Madison stood on the other side, her expression guarded but not entirely unfamiliar. The girl she once knew was still there, but she looked different, like someone who had been carrying a secret for far too long. Sophia felt a wave of conflicting emotions: relief, anger, sorrow, and something else she couldn't quite place. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The space between them felt too wide, too full of history and pain. It was like standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to take the leap or walk away. Finally, it was Madison who spoke first, her voice tentative but steady. "I've been thinking about what Caleb said," she began, her gaze dropping to the ground before meeting Sophia's eyes again. "About how? I've been shutting you out. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. I don't know when I lost sight of us, but I see it now. And I don't want to keep pretending like everything is okay when it's not." Sophia swallowed hard, the words hitting her harder than she expected. She had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was real, it felt surreal. Madison took a deep breath, her eyes searching her mother's face, as though trying to find the words that would make sense of the mess they had found themselves in. "I think I've been running away from you, from everything we had, from everything you gave me. I was scared, not of you, but of disappointing you. I know it sounds stupid, but it's the truth. You've always been so strong. You've always known what's best for me, and I was scared I couldn't live up to that, so I pushed you away." The pain in Madison's voice was unmistakable, and for the first time in a long while, Sophia saw her daughter, not the woman she had become, not the one who had left her behind, but the little girl who once clung to her in the middle of a thunderstorm, whispering for reassurance. Sophia's heart ached. She had spent so long building walls to protect herself from the hurt, but now, standing before her daughter, she realized how much of herself she had locked away in the process. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Madison whispered, the tears she had been holding back finally spilling over. "I didn't mean to push you away. I just didn't know how to handle it. I thought if I could create distance, maybe I could finally breathe. But all I did was lose you." Sophia felt the rush of emotion rise up inside her: anger, grief, relief, but above all, love. She had always loved Madison. She had always wanted the best for her, even when it felt like her presence had become a burden. Now here was her daughter, admitting to the very thing that had broken her heart. And in that moment, she realized how much she needed this apology, not just for herself, but for both of them. Sophia reached out, her hands trembling as she cupped Madison's face gently, as though afraid she might disappear if she wasn't held tightly enough. "I never wanted to make you feel like you had to live up to some expectation," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I just wanted to be there for you. But I see now that I've been trying to do too much. I've been trying to protect you when you never needed me to. I'm sorry too." Madison's shoulders shook with the weight of her confession, but Sophia didn't pull away. She stayed with her, holding her, letting the tears fall freely. The silence that had once been so suffocating now felt like a bridge being slowly rebuilt, one word, one action at a time. After what felt like an eternity, they sat down together at the kitchen table, the same table where so many of their quiet moments had been shared, where the awkwardness and the love had always coexisted. It wasn't a perfect resolution. They still had a lot of healing to do, and the road ahead would be uncertain. But in that moment, the silence that had once threatened to swallow them both now felt like a soft hum, an invitation to begin again. And so they did. Sophia and Madison began to talk, slowly, tentatively at first, but with every word they started to peel away the layers that had separated them. They talked about the wedding, about how it felt for both of them, the expectations, the hurt, the love. They talked about Caleb, about what had happened between them and what they both needed. They didn't rush through it. They didn't try to fix everything in one conversation. They just allowed themselves to be. And when the conversation slowed, when the tension finally began to ease, Sophia found herself reaching for the box she had been holding onto for so long. "I bought this for you," she said, opening the velvet box and placing the necklace in front of Madison. The golden heart-shaped pendant caught the light, the inscription shining brightly. "I want you to have it, not because of what you've done or haven't done, but because you're my daughter, always." Madison looked at the necklace for a long moment, her eyes softening. She reached out slowly and took it, a quiet thank you escaping her lips. For the first time in months, they both smiled. What do you think of the way Sophia and Madison finally found each other again? Can love truly overcome the distance that builds up between people, even when it feels impossible? If you love this story, comment 100 to let us know. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts and memories in the comments, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching Life Stories.